Hi guys and ladies, welcome back to another episode. My name is Lisema Matsietsi, and on this episode, we're just going to be talking about the roadmap to data analysis. We did part one, episode one, yesterday, and today I'm just continuing. If you haven't had the time to listen to part one, don't stress about it. I'm just going to do a little high level of what we've spoken about. But now we are just continuing on the list of things that you might do to enter into data. Please stay tuned for the rest of the podcast for you to understand just my take on it. As far as I've seen, nowadays the data entry to the data career is becoming more and more difficult with new things that are coming in. I'm seeing new certifications that are coming in. I'm seeing things being asked from people that are trying to enter into the data world. And I do agree that things are different. Remember when I started entering into the analysis space, that was back in 2010. And now looking at 2010, the time that I'm doing this recording is 2023. It has been like 13 years already, and a lot of things have changed. Just today, I was having a conversation. We were talking about strategy tools that could be used for the future. And I was making an example about how data has evolved. I think on my side, I was interested in from 2009, but I only made the official jump in 2010. Comparing it to now with all the certifications that have been needed, it has been a huge jump, more like leapfrog. And the person was sharing the same thing about, being a computer programmer back in the day. So back then, everybody with just a little bit of knowledge and data was welcome to start working in there. I had a little bit of access, but they trusted me with SQL databases because I just showed one or two people that I can write the script. And they said, if you know the programming language, doesn't matter whether you're running 10 records or you're running a million records, the script remains the same. Select star from this table, top 100. This is the simplest script that they started with, and it still stayed with me. Once you understand that script, you can be able to do anything else that you want. Some people with very mediocre skills were also still welcome in there. I remember one guy, I won't say his name, his data skills were not even top notch, but because he was within data, he found himself being promoted all the time to data manager. And I remember one of the colleagues was asking, is this guy still around? Because he literally used to fall asleep at work. So back in the before the 2010, the data people used to be the people that I just bought and they fall asleep at work. But I'm glad things have changed because we don't have that anymore. The data people are actually the most important people that you could find. But right now it has totally changed. Not just anybody with mediocre skills could be promoted right now. You only take diligent people that know what they're talking about, that have put and have shown the work that they are ready to actually do the work. Um, at a time it was quite funny because at a time when we started this, we never knew that we were stumbling into something that could become quite a big industry. At the time, it was just, we're just playing around with data. It's now that when I look back, that I realized that there was actually low barriers to entry um, compared to now. Now we have a lot of barriers to entry. Gone are the days where I heard of people saying, I was just in a meeting and I just got the position as a strategy analyst. And we ask ourselves, what is a strategy analyst supposed to do? Gone are those days. But in our last part one, we've spoken about a few things that you should take into consideration Just to recap, we've spoken about having a mathematical fundamentals, and the second thing that we've spoken about was learning how to program a computer. The third thing that we're speaking about was doing data wrangling and visualization, which is quite important when you are a data analyst or even data scientist, in case you don't have data analysts on your area. And the last thing that we've spoken about was being comfortable with statistics and probability techniques. We listed a few that you can make use of, and I think they're still quite vital until today. So in this article, I just want to expand a little bit and give you more qualities that are game changers, especially nowadays if you want to get into the data space. The beauty of it is that all of this nowadays you can get it online for free, or for a small marginal fee, compared to having to go to university and wasting a year or 2 or 3. But I'm still a strong believer that university just doesn't give you the certificate; it gives you bigger connections, and it grows your social interaction and on all of that. And I'm not just throwing in university under the bus. I'm still a firm believer in it. Okay, if we go on, the first thing that I'm going to discuss today is understanding databases. It's quite important to understand databases, especially when I'm looking at how I was introduced to databases. So that my first introduction to database, I didn't know that there were databases. I was just irritated to say, why does this look like Excel and why doesn't it have functions? Why is the ribbon not the same? I think it wasn't called the ribbon at that time. It was just the menu thing. I'm talking about the Excel 2003. It used to look horrible and different compared to now. So back then, I got introduced to Microsoft Access. It was part of my Business Information System (BIS) assignment, which was a module that I took. Well, it was the first module to complete my BCom Finance. Or back then, I think it was called BCom Financial Management, but when I graduated, it was later called BCom Finance. This module was needed as part of that degree, so I had no choice to say no to it. So, and the nice part about it is, I think it was one of those that you just easily get distinctions from it. And attending university allowed me that opportunity that I could now be exposed to things that were outside of the finance scale, which is more especially this databases, which was quite nice. The script that I used to write on SQL Access, where the way that I used to write, remember, I don't know if those people that don't know how Access work is, you have the script version where you can take the same script and then paste it into Microsoft's SQL Server Management. It can still work if you have the same databases. And on the other side, you have the front end where it now starts to look like Microsoft Excel. And you can put the things manually like Microsoft Excel, and you can query them almost like Microsoft Excel. But in a way that it's a little bit irritating if you're not used to it. You're like, why am I using this? But it quite helped me because that's how I got introduced to running a database. And I normally say to a lot of people, if you want to learn how to do databases, you have to start with Microsoft Access. Start with normal capturing of data so that once you are familiar with your data, then you can flip it over to the scripting side of things. And once you are in the scripting side of things, you are now on episode 2 or level 2. You are ready now to take it to the other side. The nice part about taking things from a normal file into what we call databases is because databases, they are called relational databases because you can actually create relationship between databases, which is something that is at a time before right now, before we have Power Query. Back in the days, it was very difficult to create a relationship between sheet 1 and sheet 2. I know right now, I mean, 2023, you can create relationship between sheets with Power Query, but back then you could not. And the only way that you could create relationship that are quite nicely was now using Access or using SQL. So that was a beautiful power into it. And I always say to people, if you really want to start, if I were to start right now with databases, I would try to take normal text files, and convert them into a relational database, so that we can start to create relationships between databases. I know Excel. I'm quite passionate about both Excel and SQL. And at one point, I'll dive straight into it. I'll dedicate a month where we can just go into both SQL and Excels, and then Access and SQL, or whichever one that you feel comfortable with. But it is quite important that you start learning databases. As far as I'm concerned, don't stress about what's online going into the hectic MySQL, whatever the case is. Just start with Microsoft Access. The simplest way for me, I would say the easiest data to get, just go into the World Bank databases. We can all get them. Download anything, whether it's list of countries or you download the list of GDPs, whatever the list. Download that and import that into Access, and then you can start playing around with that. I'll take you through now. What do you do from after you start downloading this stuff? So I think that's the easiest way. Understanding databases for you to become an analyst has got a way better advantage than a person who's just only working on text files, which is mostly Excel. The second thing that just gonna let us just talk about is learning how machine learning works. Learning how machine learning works was a shocker for me. I had actually went for my honors in informatics, and I remember I walked in a little bit late, and I saw this other game. It looked like a Tetris type of game, and in it, as it was playing, was it Tetris or Snake? Snake. It was like Snake, and you could see this thing is playing around the whole screen. But as this dot is going around the whole screen, it's having a tail, like a normal Nokia 3310 or 6210 in my case, which was my first phone. It's like it's playing Snake. But the way that it's doing it, this guy said he programmed it. It's 24 hours into machine learning. Every time it crashes or it hits itself, it will start all over. It will punish itself. And then for every punishment, it reduces size. So he was programming it that it must avoid losing its size. So every time it will go around and learn what to do and paths to take, it will start doing all of that mathematical thing. He showed us a line of code which was quite small, but that he put it in. I think it was on text file, but the line of code that was current at the time was a little bit longer. And he was saying the machine was coding itself, learning which other possible ways are out there to realize whatever it was trying to do. That was actually my first introduction to machine learning. The first thing is when I saw that, I thought, I can just control it with my phone. But it was quite amazing to see that the machine is controlling itself, and while it's controlling itself, it's already creating one or two alterations on code. So it was quite interesting. That was my first introduction, and I was told immediately as I walked in that that's going to be my semester project. You have to create that, and we can start as soon as possible to write that. Unfortunately, I didn't continue with optimization due to it be clashing with my work schedule. I was already full time at the bank, and I could not just make the time for the class. And that was a sad part about it. But the nice part is, as he was showing us all of this code that he was doing it, he showed us some of the things that were needed, which we did in big data. This things that were needed were more like clustering techniques that we spoke about in big data. And those are the things that you can easily learn in Hadoop. And it's quite amazing how the two, big data, which will create some time to speak about it, and machine learning work hand in hand. If you know a code on one side, you can actually send it over to machine learning so that the machine could know how to behave in that situation. And it's quite interesting. But before I go on with machine learning, is you need to understand there's the different terminologies in machine learning. Sometimes they can confuse you, but I think you just need to get yourself used to this terminologies. I think the first one that I think they call it supervised learning, where I am teaching the machine how to think. To say, when you get um, to the intersection, this is the decision that you take. So I'm trying to make the computer be exactly like me. The second one is unsupervised, where, like that little game that I saw there, where probably you can start supervising it for the first 10, 20 minutes. And then after that, you let the computer take over and then start learning by itself. There's a difference in code when you're doing supervised and unsupervised. And I think people that actually specialize in machine learning would totally tell you where the difference is. But as far as I'm concerned, just have to know which field do you want to specialize in, whether it's going to be supervised or unsupervised machine learning. And machine learning is very important when it has to come with data science, because machine learning can actually help you get to what you want to do with all those algorithms. So it's all of those things. I think the other thing is understanding time series. Time series is not just as simple as we do in Excel or in Power BI, where we can say, okay, it's a time series. For how long will it take? It has a little bit of different way of coding it on both big data and machine learning, I assume. And the other one is the one that we're talking about, not just clustering, which is dimensional reduction. We could go by different names. Clustering is just one of the ways of reducing dimensions. For those people that maybe you battling to say what are dimensions. So I'm just going to make an example. If you're listening to this on audio, I am a black male from Africa. So when you are describing me, you can just say different dimension. It will be describing my skin tone, black, my origin, Africa, my gender, male. So can you see there already? We already have 3 dimensions. So it does happen sometimes that you might have too many dimensions, to a point that probably if you're doing it in Excel cannot handle it anymore. And then what you want to do is you want to get dimensions that are more or less related. Like dimensions, if I'm creating more dimensions to those 3 that I spoke about, all the dimensions that are related to my ethnicity, you can group them under ethnicity. And all the dimensions that are related to my intelligence, you can group them under qualifications, or whatever the case is. And all the dimensions that are related to my family, to say my siblings' names, what, you can group them under social intelligence type of a thing. So it's easy for us to do as humans, but we have to expect, or we have to guide computers to be able to do that. And the nice part about it is machine learning could be able to help you with that. Sometimes you can just take some other things that were already predefined and just import them into your model. But all of that are quite important for data science specifically, because data scientists deal with big data. Normal data analysts, sometimes we don't have to do dimensional reduction, especially if you're already working with company data. You already know what dimensions are there. If you're applying for a credit, we already know what's required from you. It's going to be 17 fields, your identification number, and those fields are unique to that credit thing. You don't have to have like a huge sentiment report. For instance, the other time, if you go and you do a Twitter sentiment report, one tweet could be positive, another one could be talking about presidents, another one could be talking about kitchen recipes, and it can go infinite amount of times depending on how many tweets are coming at the rate. Machine learning could help, if you're in that situation, to actually try to group them into the clusters that you need them to be. So in a case where all the cooking things could be related to, say, food related chats, and then under that you can have a subcategory of cooking, packing groceries, whatever the case is, but the machine could be able to help you out with that. Otherwise, if you're a human being and you have to sit there and then listen to every quick tweet and then categorize it, I mean, you would just go in crazy, especially looking at the rate that the tweets are coming in. So machine learning becomes quite important depending on what industry you're working in and who are you working with. So just in conclusion, of these two things, I know I was terrified the first day that I walked in on my postgrad, looking at machine learning and looking at databases and big data, but I'm glad that I was able to push through with big data. Unfortunately, I didn't continue with my optimization. I didn't see the immediate relevance to me in banking. But right now, we're looking at it, it could have been a fun thing just to know for the books. But at that point, I was just searching for a pass mark. And I'm saying there's that for those that are still students or still studying, sometime getting a pass mark could be quite important because you're getting your your value for money. But maybe sometimes you could look beyond getting the pass mark. Just acquiring that knowledge of how things work could actually be a huge game changer for you. So as much as you are complicated, as much as you are conflicted about should you do machine learning, should you do big data, all I'm saying is relax a little bit. There's something that you would get, especially when you're having a supervisor. So you're having a supervised learning session like in university. I know the times are changing now. You can get stuff that are supervised on LinkedIn, on Udemy, and you name them. But I still find that self-study, sometimes you miss out on the right path, even though you have the guideline in front of you. So at one point, if you really, really want to, think about your career in data, consider where you're going to get your supervised study, and then just take that path. Don't look back, just go straight into it. Because sometimes self-study, you need to have a tribe of people that says, listen, let's go and study. That's it. That's what I've prepared as an episode for today. I hope to see you again in episode number 3. So let's stay blessed.